Welcome to the Conscious Eating Summit. I'm your host, Dr. Nancy Kroll. I have with me my dear friend, Angela Tisci. Angela is an East Asian medicine practitioner and also founder of the Integrative Fertility Institute. Thank you so much, Angela, for joining me again.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure.
So today we're talking about fertility and then also ways that mothers can essentially decrease stress and how maybe the two overlap. So can you share just a little bit about what you do, why you do it, how you got into it? Just tell us about you.
Totally. So about, 5 years ago, I ran two integrative clinics doing acupuncture, massage, yoga. I had a pretty robust practice, treating people probably, 30 plus hours per week. And I also had two children and a mortgage and all of these things, right? This adulting thing that we do. And I came to a place where I had this time and space to think about what I wanted to do with my life. And I think that as a parent, like my deepest desire was always how can I have this work-life balance? How can I still be a career woman and have this practice and have this responsibility of a business, but also be able to be there for my kids and my partner and just do what I wanted to do. I wanted to travel. I woke up and I was like, wait, I had never been outside of the country and, I never did the things that I thought I would do as an adult. And I also wanted my kids to enjoy that as well. And so after kind of going through a bunch of trainings and trying to figure out what I wanted to do, I stumbled upon this idea of creating the eco-fertility method. And I kind of pulled from all of the things that I was doing in my practice, and I started to realize that a lot of women that were struggling with fertility were also, there was a lot of work-life balance issues. There was a lot of this lack of time and space to even take care of themselves in the way that they wanted. It was like this, I'm going to do all of these things and then I'll be okay to take care of myself, right? We see it all the time. It's like this common thing. And so I looked around and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm doing that. I'm doing that. The exact same thing. I was like, no, that's wrong. That's wrong in so many ways. So I had this time and space to say, okay, what do I want for my life? How do I want to create it in this way? Because we are the creators of our lives in whatever way we want. And so that's when the eco-fertility method was born. And it's my 90-day preconception program. So I started working this program with my clients, and it was life-changing for them, not just for me, but for them in this way where I watched them create their life as well, because a lot of it is about coaching and helping people actualize what they thought they wanted for their lives. So, we address the physical health, the mental health, the financial health, and the spiritual health, just every aspect of a person's life that is affected by just living, not just becoming fertile, but just living, because we know that the more healthy people are, the more fertile they are. And we can't live our lives kind of running and trying to do all of these things. And then, okay, once we reach this goal, then we'll start taking care of ourselves. Then we'll have the time to start, eating well and having that, just sense to take time for ourselves. I'll relax when all of this happens. So that's kind of where that was born. And out of that, I realized very quickly that I also wanted to share that with everybody else. And so I started training other people to do fertility coaching as well.
You know what I love about what you were saying, the eco-fertility method? So that can be literally women's fertility, right? Literally bearing of a child. But if you take it a little bit broader even, think about what fertility even means in terms of create, like, as you were saying, like creating the life you want, right? So like having that fertile ground, right? So when you have the fertility in your body, I feel like you probably have also created that fertility in your life, right? For the ability to allow things to grow, right? And
Exactly.
allow things to happen that you've been wanting.
And if you break down what the eco fertility, the reason why I named it that is because the eco part is the ecology, which is literally the environment that you are in. So what we do is we really focus on how can we create this environment so that not only you as a mom and a potential parent can grow, but also so that, yeah, you can grow this unborn child, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like a parallel universe. It's kind of neat.
Yeah. And so I also like this too, because it kind of divides women into two groups here so that they might be listening. On one level, you know, listening to this and thinking, you know, they might be wanting to have a second child and be struggling with this. And there might be some reflection about how their stress levels and their inability to prioritize themselves is creating this situation for themselves. And another woman might be looking at this situation and thinking, actually, this type of training is a really good way for me to create that financial freedom and reduce stress. So like on both levels, I feel like the big thing that I'm hearing is like stress reduction, because I don't know if most mothers and those of you that are not mothers and are watching, I'm sure you still can relate in general, but stress is like a huge issue these days. And women tend to not prioritize themselves in general, whether you're a mother or you're not a mother. We tend to be givers. We tend to like make sure everyone else's needs are met. And then as a result, I think we suffer.
Yeah, well, and that suffering is like that struggle between my wants as a mom and as a woman. I think in general, like I think women definitely are more helper, you know, that's their nature. The struggle between what I want and what my kids want and what I want for them. You know, it's like this always this, how do you choose between yourself and your family? You know, it's always this either or, which, you know, kind of brings me to what I wanted to talk about today, in terms of the, you know, how do we know who to listen to, right? We want this thing for our children. We want this environment and we want this experience for our kids. But then there's also this like, well, what about me? What's my experience? What experience do I want as a mom, as a parent, you know, someone who has these dreams, you know, about their life, and then, oh, now you have the kids. Oh, wait, those dreams, do they even matter anymore? Or when do we do those? You know, like, is that something that is, so what I see a lot is parents and moms tend to go, it's an either or. Either my kids are happy or I'm happy. It's never both. So I'd like to talk a little bit about, you know, this little kind of like listening to the whisper that's going on inside. That's like that part of us that's kind of telling us that something's not quite right, that something is trying to be heard. And that's where, when we have these two parts of ourselves, that, you know, the part that wants to be the best mom ever, and then the part that wants to be like the independent mom, you know, doing other things that have nothing to do with parenting, like, how can we bring those together? Like, how can we make it not either or, you can have one or the other, but how can we have both and more, where we can create something that is conducive to both sides, right? Because they're related, right? They're interrelated, just like Chinese medicine, right? We can't take this part of ourselves and like put it over here in the corner and say, okay, we're not going to pay attention to this part of ourselves, because what will happen? It'll get louder and louder and louder and louder until it's screaming at you saying, I need you to pay attention to me. And that could manifest in a lot of different ways, but oftentimes it's pain, could be weight, it could be, I mean, it could be some autoimmune disorder, flare-ups. It could be a lot of different things that it will show up as, but this part of us that we ignore, this part of us that is essentially a part that we're saying we're not going to pay attention to, is like dying for attention, right? It's like over there going, please, please help me. Yeah. So what I'd like to share is a really cool way to kind of bring those parts of ourselves together and just a reframe on how to look at that. Mm-hmm. So this part of us, like if you were to kind of find it somewhere in your body, like let's say it's, kind of, in your stomach or in your heart, a lot of people will carry it back here. They'll say this part of me that wants to get out where it's struggling so much. Let's say, okay, well, what does it want for us? What does it want? Oftentimes, a lot of people will say it wants to relax. It wants freedom. It wants attention. It wants some other experience that it's having. It doesn't want to be ignored. It doesn't want to be this part of us that is disconnected. Mm-hmm. So if we think about that part and say, okay, it's like your arm. You can't just cut it off. It is a part of us. So how can we integrate this arm, this part of us that wants to be heard, into our life as a whole, instead of thinking, oh, it has to be these separate parts that are not communicating together. So is that making sense? Am I on the...
Yeah, no, it's totally making sense. Like, I'm just loving how you're going a bit deeper with, like, a lot of people watching this probably have symptoms of some sort, like the excess weight or the hormones or the autoimmune, right? And I love how you're saying that, like, go a little bit deeper, like what's below this. And like, we like to focus on the diet and the lifestyle, which are very important. Yeah. But if you don't address what you're saying is this deeper need, essentially, that is you're ignoring, you're not going to get to the root of it.
Exactly. Well, and I think it's so easy to take this part of us that is so desiring to live and thinking that if we just ignore it, that it will be okay. But it's like literally ignoring a part of you. Like if you're ignoring a part of you, like how damaging is that to your body, to your soul, to every part of you? And I also like to kind of take it even like a little step further and say, what if it was your child that was doing that? They were just ignoring a part of themselves. They were ignoring their hunger. They were ignoring the fact that they were so stressed out and they couldn't take a break. They were ignoring the needs that they had. What would we say to them? Why is it different that the self-talk that we say to ourselves is different than what we would want for our child? Because we are that reflection for them. That is an essential part of what we do for ourselves is we're their greatest teacher, right? We get this amazing experience where we get to be their little guide in this world. And I really, encourage people to think about, what kind of guide do you want to be? Do you want to be, do as I say, not as I do, kind of person? Because we would never allow our children to ignore a need that they had. If they need to go to the bathroom, if they need to, eat or whatever, even the most simple things. But we do that for ourselves, which is a really interesting kind of dichotomy that happens. And it's like, I would question why. Why is that happening?
So I'm curious, like, what have you found with clients? So when they start to actually focus on that inner need or that whatever it is that they've been kind of ignoring, right? That what sort of shifts tend to happen, or what does that even look like? Like I guess, where is that balance? So is it like they're balancing the two needs, or do you find that when a parent actually focuses on their own needs, it's kind of like the analogy where you put your oxygen mask on first, and then the child's, that everything tends to benefit from you having your cup full?
Definitely that, but what I mostly see is this alignment, where they are finally kind of, instead of the struggle all the time of like, there's this or that that they're trying to decide between all the time. It's like, it becomes complete alignment, where it's like, it's about my whole experience. Because when I am a whole person and not being pulled in these two different directions, then I can, certainly give more, certainly be more present and a more viable resource for the whole family unit.
So what are, like, if someone's watching this and they're thinking, oh shit, I know now, like, like there's like that introspection of like, there's something that I really need to address and I don't know where to start. Like, where would you suggest they actually start?
Yeah, well, start with a conversation with someone like me or somebody that does coaching, and really dive deep into what is the root cause of why it's coming up. Where is the struggle, and how to really uncover where it's coming from. Because yeah, we live life in a very, we have to pull it together. We have to kind of, do things even though there could be other stuff going on. So yeah, like talking to someone like me, talking to someone like you, someone who can really dive into the struggle and find out like, how can we bring this into alignment so that it's not a struggle anymore? So it's not this either or all the time.
Have you found, and I'm just curious, so you had mentioned earlier that people that you have, like you offered your eco-fertility program to clients, like meaning people that were wanting to get pregnant or wanting to improve their health, and then you offered it as a practitioner's resource as well. Is that true?
Yeah, so I converted it into a training program so people could become fertility coaches and learn the methods to be able to coach people through the eco-fertility method. Yeah. So, and then a few years ago, I actually opened it up to train other people who have maybe struggled with infertility or want to have more work-life balance, who want to have location freedom. Because for me, the reason why I wanted to have an online business or have the flexibility to, make more and work less was so I could spend more time with my kids. And so I could have this just flexibility in my life, because there was no way I was going to go back to working full time. Like that just is not something that I wanted. And I was very clear about that. So then I started training people who were interested in helping women and couples with fertility.
It's interesting. I mean, not interesting, sad. I think it's more sad, is that like women really do have to choose, I mean, within the conventional kind of work system, right? Women have to choose between their profession and motherhood often. I mean, and the women, I mean, I thought this when I was pregnant, right? Like, I'm going to have my baby, and then I'm just going to keep doing everything I'm doing, and I'm just going to have the baby, right? Like, it was, like, I had this mentality, like, those women are just weak if they're complaining, right? Like, I'm going to be able to do this, and I'm going to be able to do it all perfect, right? And then you have a baby, and your world is rocked. I don't know one woman who doesn't have a baby and in the world is rocked. And then you're like, oh shit, like I can't continue life exactly the way it was before. Like it just, life changes, right? And so I went through this whole process of, again, just like you, like deciding I actually want to spend time with my child. And so navigating a situation where you have the financial freedom and are able to spend time with your child it can be tricky. So having options like this, where a woman is able to have flexibility in her schedule and is able to do some sort of job where it actually is fulfilling and heart-centered and from a place of giving, I think all of those just create like, I don't know, that space to have the life that you really want, right? I mean, as women, we don't want to be doing just like mundane jobs that we don't care about. And we also don't want to be like spending too much time away from our kids. So finding that middle ground seems like a perfect space.
Yeah. I mean, and I think you touched on something, like when women, have children and even fathers too, like if they're a single dad or, just having to have that responsibility to care for somebody else, it's so easy to just cut off parts of yourself and start limiting your experience like over and over. And I think it's really sad because I think we do need to start realizing that our kids need all of us. They need the whole person. They don't want just the one part that you want to give them. They want all of it. And I didn't realize how important that was. I have a teenager now, so and a 10-year-old. So there's the dynamic there. But my daughter is amazing because when she was kind of going through like who am I, who do I want to be, and all of these things, I really realized like how important it was for me to be like, I am doing this thing that I love. I love it so much that I want to do it all the time. And I also want to make a good living doing it. And so I'm doing this thing and I'm creating my life. And so she's watching this happen. And it's been such a cool experience kind of just having these conversations with her about, if she wants to grow up and have a family or have a career, she's like, I don't want to give up my dance or my snowboarding or all of these things that I dearly love that makes her who she is. And I was like, don't give those things up ever. If you don't want to create a life, create your life the way you would like it. I mean, obviously there's some things that we, have to navigate around, but I think that, for the big message is like, we get to create this. It's not I have to wait until my kids grow up. Do it now, because we don't know what the future holds. We never know. And if we wait, we call it someday living, right? Where people are like, I'm okay. And everything will be okay when this or A, B, and C happens. And what if that never happens and you've spent your whole life waiting for it? I see it so much.
I love that. And that we travel with a lot with our, like my child. And I think I'm a huge advocate of that, of just like, creating a space and a container for your child to be nurtured, but within that, like still living a life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They see it. They see when we sacrifice. They see it so much. And they're like, why are you doing that? You're miserable, And then you're like, oh, wait, I am miserable. See you later. I'm going to go do my thing, But that's the struggle that I see women make. They're like, I don't have time because I have to stay home with my kid. I don't have time because I have to do this. And it's like, is that true? Or is that just an excuse that we say that, do you want to give your child part of yourself, or do you want to give them your whole present self that is totally realized?
What I've been reflecting on this as well, which I really love the idea is like, so many more people breaking outside of the box of like what a normal like life is, right? Mm-hmm. So like what I want in my life might be completely different what you want in your life, right? Mm-hmm. But in general, as a society, we have this idea of what our life should look like. Like we should have the house with the 2 kids and whatever. I mean, it's becoming a little bit more abstract as things are evolving, but more or less we have this idea of like certain markers we should have, or we should be doing this or that kind of thing. And I think what's really important is that a person is in tune with what they actually want, right? And it might not look like what everyone else has, and being okay with that. Because at the end of the day, if you died tomorrow, right, and you weren't in tune with that thing that you really wanted, that was such a waste of a life.
Right.
Yeah.
Sometimes we'll do these exercises where you write your eulogy, right? Like what people would say about you. It sounds a little dark and twisty, but in the same sense, it's like, who do you want to be known for? What are you holding back, right? In this world, this one life that we get to live, it's like, gosh, just go do it. What do you have to lose, really?
Awesome. So you have a free gift for our viewers. Can you share what it is?
Yeah, so I have a free training for those of you who've maybe struggled with fertility, or just are looking to have more work-life balance, or have an option to have an online business. I have a free fertility coach training, and it's a lovely training. It kind of tells you a little bit about what it is and how to become a fertility coach.
Awesome. So everyone that wants that link, just go back to the email where you found this interview. You can click the link and get access to that right away. So Angela, I have one more question for you.
Yeah.
If you could give your younger self any advice, what would it be?
Don't ever be afraid to do what you want. Just do it. Don't let fear stop you.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's taken me like about 10 years to get to that. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And I want to thank all our viewers for joining us as well. Make sure you check your inbox for the next email. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Thank you.